we'll have the questions here if you need to ask a question. First off, the reports are due on March 1st. If you need an extension, you can definitely email me. My email is in the report, and we'll have that available online again. The login to the system is reports.dfms.org. This year, the process has changed a little bit for logging in. The first time you log in, you'll use your user ID and PIN like you've always used every year. And you'll be prompted to create a new user ID and password. It's going to be an email with a regular password like any other password. If you're going to be sharing access with anyone, you're going to make sure that your password is something you feel safe sharing. Again, if you need an extension, just contact me at my email and we'll work it out, because it's already February 27th, so it's not going to be a big deal. So this is the login. This is what it looks like when you log in. Once you've created your new login, that will, your email will be the login with the password that you create. The first thing you'll see is your parish profile. It'll have your parish name, your addresses, your contact information. If any of that needs to be edited, you'll click edit. Otherwise, you'll just click continue. Most stuff should not need to be changed in this section. If you need to change an address or a tax ID or something like that, you'll click on the top portion where it says addresses, and you'll see another screen there, and you can edit whatever you need to edit. Try to not change the parish short name. I use that to match things up once I export the data. Make sure to click save on everything you do, or it'll revert to whatever it was. Preparation and certification. This is where you let everyone know who prepared the report, what date it was finalized, your email, your contact information. The emails that you put here are going to be what the Episcopal Church uses at the end of the year to contact you regarding new information for next year's report. So make sure that you check for that and put in emails that you're going to check. As always, save and continue, and then it will take you to vital statistics. So member and attendance and services. It shows you last year's information along with this year's information. If anything's off by more than 50%, the cell will stay highlighted in yellow. The only thing about this, you cannot enter negative numbers. Everything has to be positive, and you can't enter any text. It's numbers only. So on the first section, it's you using the Register of the Church Membership and Rites. The first item will be members reported last year, and this number shouldn't be changed. So this is the number at the 1, 2, 3. After item number 2, it says M1 or M19, total active baptized members. That will transfer automatically in there, and you don't have to worry about changing it. If you had decreases or increases the previous year, that you didn't count, then you can count them in this year. So that'll be how the decreases is how you will account for negative numbers. You'll just put a positive number for a decrease and it'll subtract. So increases will be additions to church membership based on baptisms, confirmations, receptions, transfers, and restorations from inactive status or anyone not counted. Decreases are death, transfer, they've changed to inactive status, or they weren't counted last year. So the number that you come up with at the end, and this automatically calculates, will be, next year it will be your first item. So that's the number that we're reporting for that. So as far as active baptized members is concerned, any person whose baptism is recorded at your church and contributes and participates in the worship and communal life of the reporting congregation, regardless of how much or little, should be considered active and counted. And on our website, we have several links to instructions and workbooks and everything else if this goes too fast. And you can always go on there and download workbooks, and it has a lot more explanation in there, kind of like a text document. In the second section here, where it starts with communicants in good standing, let's see. So members and communicants in good standing are baptized members who have received Holy Communion at least 3 times during the year and are faithful in quote-unquote corporate worship unless for good cause prevented, and working, praying, and giving to the spreading of the kingdom of God. So if anyone even participates a little bit and they're baptized members, they should be considered communicants in good standing. So on the first item, you only count the adults. On the second item, you count the youth, and that is people aged 15 and under. And then you'll get your total communicants, and then others who are active. Their baptism may not be recorded, or they're from another congregation, but they show up. You can count them under others. Average Sunday attendance. This is using your service register. So the average Sunday attendance is something that we use also to calculate how many convention delegates your parish gets. So this is an important number to enter. And if you don't enter it, you may not be able to mark your report complete. So what you do is take your total Sunday attendance, and if Saturday evening Eucharists are considered Sunday services, you count those as well and divide by the total number of Sundays, so that should be 52. If you don't have a spreadsheet already, I can help you create one to track things like this. It may be easier to keep track of it during the year rather than going back and trying to check it all at the end of the year. Number 8, additional principal worship attendance on a weekday if no Sunday service. This is instead of your ASA. So if you don't have something to report for ASA, this is the number that you would report for weekday services. Easter attendance, pretty plain. Last year Easter was April 21st, so just attendance for everything on Easter. Number 10, Sunday and Saturday evening Eucharists. Let's just count the total number of Eucharists on Saturday and Sunday. Number 11, weekday Eucharists include, this one you include Eucharist following morning prayer, and because it constitutes a complete and separate service. Private Eucharists, things that are parts of marriages, private services, anything like that should be counted in number 12. Numbers 13 and 14, daily offices. Line 13 is just for Sunday. Line 14 is the rest of the week. Any services of morning and evening prayer and other daily services, even when followed by or used with a Eucharist. So any kind of service that you hold during the week. 15 and 16, marriages and burials. Anything that's recorded in your service record, even if they're counted on line 12, because a Eucharist was included. So regardless, you may count a marriage twice if there's a Eucharist in it. Next page, using the Register of the Church Membership and Rites. Baptisms, you want to record over 16 and under 16, just like with the other things. And same thing for confirmations. That should say confirmations and received. Um, and on 19 and 20, it should say confirmations not received. Uh, Number 21, received by a bishop. That's a little less common. So if you have anyone who's in that category, just add them there. Number 22, this is under education and languages. Total church school students. Count the total number of children and youth in all grades who are enrolled. Don't include day school students unless they were also enrolled in church school. Adult education program, just click yes or no whether you have one and record the number of adults engaged. And number 25 or 26, 25 and 26, just indicate which languages you have services in, and if there are any other languages, you can add them in number 26. Then again, save and continue, as always. We don't want to lose our progress. Stewardship and financial data. This one can be a little trickier to track if you don't have your annual report. This too shows you the values alongside. Bold items will be calculated automatically, so your subtotals, your totals, and throughout the whole thing, you don't have to enter that number. The online form will add it for you. And again, no negative numbers, dollar signs, commas, anything like that, just numbers. Giving information. So the first two things, I know not everyone has pledge cards, but most people do. So just record the total number of pledge cards and the total dollar amount pledged, and it's count any pledge that you get, adults, children, anyone, doesn't matter if they're a member or not. If they signed a pledge card, count them. Guidelines for reporting. All funds from whatever source, if it's used to operate the congregation and its operating revenues. The general operation includes compensation, expenses related to operating and insuring the buildings, expenses of the music program, church school, adult education programs, flowers, supplies, and office expenses, things like that. Because operating revenues are defined as funds that are used to pay operating expenses, operating income will typically equal or nearly equal operating expenses. If the report's not done right, if the report is done right, there will usually be no significant difference between total operating revenues and total operating expenses. Again, all figures have to be positive numbers. A stock market loss isn't considered negative income. It's reflected in the value of investment. So that's at the end of this page. For designated, undesignated, restricted funds, funds are considered restricted if the donor has specified that the gift or income from the gift is to be used for a specific purpose. Unrestricted may be designated by the vestry for a specific purpose. The parochial report is based on the distinction between operating and non-operating funds. A donor may restrict a gift for operating purposes, and the income is considered to be operating income because the gift is used for an operating purpose. So depending on what purpose it is where you would put it, non-operating versus operating. For purposes of the report, all funds that are available for or used for operating expenses are operating revenues. All funds given or designated for non-operating expenses are non-operating revenues. And the same thing for, expenses. If it's used for that, that's what it is. There are 3 ways congregations can raise and expend money for outreach. They're different, so they're reported differently. You can make a special appeal for a particular project outside the parish, or you can designate the proceeds of the fundraising event in advance for a purpose outside the parish. And this is, again, outreach and expenditures. It's just things that you're sending to other places. It's a You can make a special appeal for a summer day camp. A vestry can include a mission and outreach line in the operating budget, things like that, where you're sending money to other organizations. So starting at number 3, that one's probably a little easier to calculate. It's just everything you've received for plate and pledge offerings, anything that anyone has given, no matter how insignificant, if it came in through the plate and pledge payments and regular support, that's what goes in there. Number 4, if you've taken money out of your investment and designated it specifically for operations, that amount goes in here. If it's just money that could be used or that's in your investments, you don't need to put it there. Number 5, other operating income. That includes figures for net rental and fundraising income that are not, sorry, I got that wrong. Okay, so the figures for net rental and fundraising are not to be used if they're negative. So if you see at the bottom an example, if you have rental property income and your direct expenses are more than the income and the net income would be negative, you enter 0. Anything surplus you would enter. Unrestricted bequests, that's going to be the principal of all unrestricted bequests that were used for operating purposes. So only if you've used it. Again, 7, assistance from the diocese. That's grants for the parish budget, clergy salaries, and operating expenses. You don't count anything that was paid on your behalf if it didn't go into your account. So anything that, let's say the diocese is going to help you pay for something and they don't send it to you, it doesn't go into your account, but we pay it on your behalf, you don't count that. Again, totals come automatically. Non-operating revenue is used for purposes outside the general operation of congregation. So funds received for capital projects, anything used for the purpose of land, building, construction, major improvements, only contribution and grants received or recognized during the report year. So don't use interest, dividends, appreciation, or depreciation in this section, just actual funds you received. Number 9, additions to endowments and other investment funds. And again, you only report the principal amount of what was received. So only new contributions are going in. It's not adding to, it's adding to your, it's only what you're adding to it. Any losses to portfolios don't count here. Number 10, contributions for outreach and mission. So if you have soup kitchens, after school programs, shelters, day camps, things like that that you pay for, and you get contributions for, the money received for that will go in line 10. Number 11, funds for transmittal to other organizations. You can include anything that's restricted or gifts for special purposes outside the basic operation of congregation. So Good Friday offerings, Episcopal Relief and Development, Theological Education Sunday, UTO, things like that. Funds contributed to seminaries are also reported there. If you receive funds to transmit to other, to transmit to seminaries, that goes there. And then again, totals will be here. Okay, so operating expenses. Um, so number 12, to diocese for assessment, apportionment, or fair share. This is the amount that you tithe to the diocese. So that's going to be where you report that. And um, it depends on whether your accounting is on accrual or accrual basis or cash basis as to whether you put in how much you're planning to give or how you've planned to give for the year or how much you have given. So you'll have to see, it'll depend on your parish how you do your accounting. Number 13, outreach from operating budget. So if you have a line in your budget for outreach or mission giving, that should be where you report how much you've given for that. Number 14, all other expenses for operating. So that's, salaries, buildings, operations, programs, things like that to just operate the church. So those three are your only part that are operating expenses. Non-operating expenses have a little bit more. So major improvements in capital expenditures. So if you have you're collecting on your capital campaign or something like that to improve your property or whatnot, this is where you would record the expenses the things that you disperse from that. So this is the other half of the non-operating income. So if you're using money to improve your property or buy property or things like that, that money would go here. Expense for congregations, outreach, and mission, that goes here. So all of the things that were shown in line 10, if you're dispersing funds for those items, that is where you would put your expenses. 17, funds contributed to seminaries. So if you've contributed to Episcopal seminaries, put it there. Let's see, non-operating expenses, number 18, funds transmitted to other organizations. So anything that you've sent somewhere else, like Advent, Lenten, and Good Friday offerings, ERD, UTO, the discretionary fund, things like that, not seminaries, all of that would go here. And the last bit on this page is the year-end items. So the figures entered on 19 and 20 will almost always be exactly equal to the figures on your audited financial statements. Decreases in market value of investments will be reflected in the total recorded on line 20. So those losses are not expenses, nor are they negative income. Negative values are not allowed. So it's just whatever total you have in your cash and checking and your total investment value as of December 31st. And then again, make sure to click Save and Continue. We don't want you to have to re-enter. So the next section is the clergy section, and this one's a little bit trickier this year. If you've previously recorded any clergy positions for your parish, they'll be up here under previously reported. And if that person is still there, you can click here where the little box is to say roll over to 2019, and then make sure you click transfer. If you don't click transfer, it won't transfer. The next thing, this is the next thing that will show up right here. If you click transfer, this is what it will come up with. So you'll see the person's name and their information, and if you want to edit, you click edit. If you want to delete them, you can do that too. If you say, oh, I didn't really want to transfer them, just delete it. And it will show you their name, the year, what their position title is, where they're canonically resident, their, if they're full-time or part-time, their pension status, and what year they were called as congregation. and then if you have another title for them, there's a spot for that. So you can save that. You can also add a new one if you have to add something new. Oh, there's my circle. All right. And then if you have other additional information for your clergy person, like they're serving in another congregation or there's a unique situation, you'll click up at the top where it says additional information, and you can complete that and then save and continue. Outreach ministries and volunteer activity. You're almost done. So this one, you just indicate any ministries that are served by your parish, and you can say, a few or many people are involved. And then if you click on any of the ones that say few or many involved, it wants you to estimate the number of people served. It's just an estimate. You are allowed to enter text in this box. It doesn't have to be strictly numerical values, but there's not a lot of space. And then if you click on other, it wants you to add on the bottom section on that very last part, it'll ask you to add which ministry you're serving. And if you try to click save and continue at the end and you haven't filled in one of those boxes, it will prompt you to fill them out. And I mean, if you click the anyone's involved, it wants a number. You won't be able to save it if you don't put in a number. After you're all done with all of that, make sure to go in, and on the left-hand side, there's a spot that says Mark Complete. If you don't mark it complete, we don't know that you've done your report. So once you do that, if you haven't entered average Sunday attendance and plate and pledge, it won't let you mark your report complete. That is one thing, and it'll give you a warning here. Like average Sunday attendance, it may let you save it, but once you click mark complete, you're not going to be able to edit it anymore. I can take away the completion mark if you've accidentally clicked on it. Just make sure you contact me right away, and I can take away that completion mark so you can edit it. Once I mark that I've checked it and that the diocesan office has marked it complete, I can't uncheck that. So yeah, if you need to edit your report, let me know as soon as possible. If you want to print a copy of your report, you can download a PDF. You just go to the part that says print report, and then you can print reports back to 1998. So any report that you don't have a copy of, you can get it here. So your current report will be 2019, and then you just click download PDF, and it should download to your downloads folder. If you have trouble finding it, it's usually somewhere on your desktop, or it's in your main user folder on your computer. So the only other thing that we ask that you complete is the clergy compensation form, and that is used to calculate our results from table 6 in the journal and directory. There's a number on there that we ask for your parish number. It's not, if you don't have it on there, it's okay, but you can find it in your journal and directory. It's in the parish directory next to the parish name. There'll be a 3-digit number. The first number indicates what county you're in. The second number indicates what order your parish became a parish in the diocese in that county. So it's just a way for us to track it, and it makes it convenient. And this form is online, and it's also, you can download a PDF and send it in. Either way is fine. The only thing that I would ask is if you fill in all your forms online, you don't need to print them out for me and mail them in. Just if I get them online, it's fine. I don't need 2 copies. If you want to send in the signature page for the parochial report, that's fine. I can keep that with the records.
Kim, this is Peter.
Yes.
We have a question. If you it says many of the people served by a group in your church return monthly, i.e., a food pantry. So if many of the people served by a group in your church return monthly, that is a food pantry, how should they be counted, or like should they be counted? Do you have
So
any
if the
guidance on
number
that?
of people served, if you know how many individuals are unique, you would just um, count those unique individuals as each one being served. If you don't know whether people are unique or you're really not counting them, you just know that maybe you serve in the course of the year you serve 100 meals. So you could say you serve 100 people. It may be 75 people because some of them are duplicated, but you don't know. So whichever one, um, whichever way you know. I mean, don't go into too much detail over it, and don't worry about it too much. But if you know that you served at least 100 people, put 100. It's an estimate. So next, the clergy compensation form. So this all we need is the title, whether you're full time or part time, approximate hours per week, and then this is only for clergy positions. If you've got lay people working in your parish, we don't need the report on that. We used to collect that information, but we don't collect it anymore. Um, the cash salary is the total cash salary um, that doesn't include housing and whatnot. It should include FICA or SICA. So any tax information that they get for that, yeah, that's included. Utilities, any additional cash paid for them to use as a utility expense, um, that that goes there. Value of housing is computed on the same basis as for the church pension fund, 30% of cash salary plus utilities and FICA or SECRA allowance. So um, if you're using that method to pay for housing, that is what you'll report there. Equity allowance, that goes with the value of housing, and um, it's it's cash that may be paid to clergy who live in church-owned housing. So that would not also be, you wouldn't have cash for housing and equity allowance. Um, so the next one is cash for housing, and that's um, a dollar amount provided in place of a rectory. So if they're living on their own, they're paying their own rent and or um, mortgage, that's the amount that would be there, and it's separate from cash salary. So the total compensation is going to be all of those items together. So the cash salary, utilities, value of housing, equity allowance, and cash for housing. You would add all of that to get the total compensation. So allowances are reimbursements made rather than compensations. Um, Things like automobiles or phones or entertainment and official expenses for the parish that wouldn't normally be covered under salary. You don't want to include the pension or insurance payments. That doesn't go there. Um, that's a separate thing, and we don't need it to be filed here. The last thing they have is there's a fact survey, and they'd like you to complete it by June 1st. It's pretty much just a very long survey about what your parish is, what you do, how many seats you have, how long you've been a parish, what type of leadership you have, things like that. It's not mandatory. If you want to fill it out, that's fine. We're not going to chase you down for it, but they'd like to collect some information. So if you're up for it, go for it. It'll be fun. Lastly, these are all of our resources, and again, this will all be available on our website. We'll have a copy of the webinar for you, along with a copy of presentation, and there are links in the presentation to everything. So that's going to be it for this. And if you need any information, or you need an extension, or you need someone to help you with how to track all of this stuff all throughout the year, instead of freaking out right before it's due, it's like, oh, I haven't done it, just call me, contact me, let me know, and we'll work it out, and we'll figure something out, and we'll make it so that it's easier for you. I hope this was useful. Again, online on our website, edow.org, and that will conclude our webinar for today. Thanks.